Welcome friends, this is Amy at AmyFerrellArt, and today I'm going to continue painting on this baseball glove and baseball, and I am going to focus on the baseball. So I am just applying on dry paper pretty much this is a warm gray. This is Daniel Smith watercolors, and I'm just kind of doing a very light watery mix on, it's a dry paper, but I'm doing a pretty watery mix. I don't want a whole lot of color, but I just want enough to make it, be an off-white color. And I am focusing, I'm going to cover the whole baseball, but I am focusing mostly on the areas that are lighter. Of course, this is the shadow side over here. So I'm just kind of wetting that dark shadow that I had already applied. That's like the shadow that is in the glove, and just kind of letting some of that darker color run into this warm gray color, just to give it a little more of a darker shadow effect. And so I'm just going to apply this over the whole surface of this ball, just in a kind of a scrubbing circular motion, just trying to get the whole thing covered. And it's translucent enough that I can still see my sketch lines through it. Now I'm just going in with some burnt umber on some of the darker areas, kind of indicating the dark, dirty spots on the ball. A ball's not going to be perfectly one color, so I'm trying to imitate the dirt that you see on the baseball, just with a fairly watery mix, a tea consistency, and then just going in with a little more water, clean water, just to dab it and soften those edges. Now I'm going in with some transparent orange, and again, this is on the shadow side, so it's the side that's close to the glove. And now I'm going in with a little burnt umber on top of that. I'm just trying to, create the different areas of the shadows and the dirt on the baseball. Now I'm coming in with some clean water to soften those edges. I want it to blend really well. I don't want any really harsh edges for the most part. Now I've got a little more burnt umber, and then I apply a little bit, and then I soften those edges with some clean water. And now this is the seam, so I am going in and trying to enhance some of the stitching with just adding a little bit of shadow color. Now I'm touching in that shadow area, letting some of that bleed into the wet area of the ball on this shadow side. Just kind of working my way down here, adding a little more neutral tint to the shadow down here. Adding a little more water to get a soft blend. Now just adding some water to kind of soften this area here. I don't want a harsh edge. Lifting a little bit of the color. Adding a little more transparent orange. Letting it kind of blend in with that little bit of neutral tint that was left on there. Just playing around with the colors just till you get that perfectly imperfect, dirty look of a baseball, of a well-loved, well-used baseball. Now I am coming in with some red. I believe this is Scarlet Lake. And I'm just going over the stitching. This is stitching that's kind of going around the side and kind of under the ball. I'm getting a little bit of a smaller brush. Now I'm adding a little more on the seam part where the two pieces meet in the middle of the stitching, and then adding the little, I guess like the eye, kind of like the eyes, the eyelet maybe, of where the stitching goes into the leather. Just a little dot there on the ends of those stitches. Yeah, I've got this burnt umber going in between the two pieces of leather, and then we'll have stitching holding those two pieces together. Just coming in with a little more burnt umber. Now I'm going to add that neutral tint to create the rest of this shadow under the ball. That'll help guide how dark I need the ball. Make sure I get the values right, so I need to add that shadow in. Got that Scarlet Lake to add the stitches. Trying to put the stitches in the direction that it makes it look like it's two sides being held together. Had to get a little bit better of a look right there. Make sure I'm going in the right direction. This is probably a cream consistency. Enough water to make the paint flow easily onto this because the warm gray color that I put on the whole ball, that's all dry. So this is going on dry paper. But you need enough moisture for the paint to flow on there. Of course, we want the stitches to become a little smaller as we go away from us. We have a little bit of stitching up here. Now I'm just adding a little burnt umber just to make the little marks where the stitch has gone into the leather. Sorry, my head gets in the way just a bit. I sometimes try to get a closer look. I guess these would be like little eyelets. Deepen that seam just a little bit. This is burnt umber and neutral tint. Just makes a warmer, darker brown. Oop. Get that off there, and that worked out really well because it kind of makes a little shadow there. Happy accident. Sorry, my head got in my way a bit here. Oh, to have young eyes again. Just adding a little bit of darker color in between these laces or the thread, just to kind of give a little bit of a shadow. Now I'm just going to kind of soften those edges. Just kind of add some color where the ball would normally hold the dirt. Just adding some texture. Granulating colors would be really good here. Burnt umber is a granulating color, but it's such a small area. I'm just adding a little more texture. Just trying to create a very well used and loved baseball. Trying just to make loose marks, not trying to be too uniform. I don't want perfect circles. I want it just to have the irregular look of, you know, dirt and stained and all that fun stuff of a well-used baseball. Just kind of tapping in some burnt umber and then softening the edges with some clean water. Just kind of being a little random. Quick tapping motions. Just a little bit of burnt umber with little neutral tint for a few darker spots. Softening some of the edges. Now just using a little bit of what's left on my brush from that darker color and kind of dry brushing it into the ball. Now just repeating that process, a few darker spots and I'm just softening that shadow edge. Just putting a little transparent orange kind of over that shadow. Just creating just a bit of a reflection from the glove. Softening that edge from the glove and the shadow, adding a little bit of a warm gray. Now adding a little transparent orange. Now I've got a little more on this dry area, trying to create a glow from the glove. So I've got a little transparent orange, just kind of working it in, creating a glowing effect. It's reflecting off of that glove. Just adding a little deeper color. Kind of creating a little bit of a shadow under these laces or the threading. Softening that shadow down onto the ball a little. Adding a little burnt umber. Making that transition from the darkest shadow to the glow from the reflection from the glove. Go back and forth with transparent orange and burnt umber, creating a glow, but I also want there to be the kind of the dirt on the ball. So I just go back and forth till I get that desired look that I'm going for. Some clean water to soften the edge there. Just lifting a little bit here and there so it's not a solid color. There's variations in this glow. Got some clean water here to soften those edges, and got a little more warm gray. I'm very hard on my brushes, and I guess this style of painting that I do, I tend to be really hard on my brushes. Now I'm just doing a little bit of dry brushing to get some texture. I've got a little kind of some burnt umber neutral tint, and I'm just kind of going over it with somewhat of a dry brush on dry paper, bringing out some of that paper texture, and it gives the ball a really nice texture. Just kind of scrubbing it on. Just doing some more random spots of burnt umber just to kind of make the different spots in the ball. And then I'll go back and soften that with some clean water. Adding a little shadow to the bottom edge, just some burnt umber. Probably a cream consistency, not a whole lot of water, but just enough to make it flow. And then I'll go back and add the clean water to soften the edges. Just adding more of the transparent orange to the palm of the glove, the part that's going to be right under the ball. It'll help make sure I've got the shape of the ball correct. Adding a little burnt umber to that transparent orange. So just help me get the values in the ball correct if the colors around it are filled in. Adding a little neutral tint right up next to the ball for that shadow. Now just fixing the shape of the ball with some more warm gray. To see the finished painting, go over to my website, AmyFerrellArt.com, and give me a subscribe and a like. Just adding neutral tint under this to help fix the shape of the ball a little more on this side. And that is about it for our baseball. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, give me a like, and I'll see you next time.